So your 1.6 lesson goes over combinations of functions. With these, you're going to see them in the way of f of x plus g of x, f of x minus g of x, f minus g of x, f plus g of x, that kind of thing. So it's going to give you what f of x is, it's going to give you what g of x is, and it's going to tell you either to add them, subtract them, multiply them, or divide them. There'll also be ones where you're plugging in one of the functions in for x in the other function and then simplifying also. So if we look, let's do f of x plus g of x first. We're going to use f of x as 2x minus 3, g of x as x squared minus 1. First one that we're solving here or simplifying is f plus g of x, or f of x plus g of x. So we're just going to take the two expressions and add them. Remember, when we are adding expressions, get rid of the parentheses, combine like terms. So that's 2x minus 3 plus x squared minus 1. From here, we're just combining like terms and putting this in standard form. So that's going to give us f of x plus g of x is equal to x squared plus 2x minus 4. Look at some examples. The first one that we see, we have f of x minus g of x. We're still using, for your next one, you have f of x minus g of x. So for this one, we're just taking f of x, which is that 2x minus 3, and subtracting it with the g of x, which is that x squared minus 1. So first thing we're going to do here is distribute that negative into the parentheses. So you are going to have 2x minus 3 minus x squared plus 1. So again, just rewrite this in standard form, combine your like terms, and that gives you f of x plus g of x is equal to negative x squared plus 2x minus 2. So this is just supposed to be a minus. Thank you. For your next one, you have f of x times g of x. So this one, we're just going to FOIL this out. So 2x minus 3 times x squared minus 1. So 2x times x squared gives us 2x cubed. Then 2x times negative 1 is negative 2x. The negative 3 times x squared is negative 3x squared. And then negative 3 times 1, or negative 1, is a positive 3. Again, when we write our answer, we're just going to write it in standard form. So that's going to be f of x times g of x is equal to 2x cubed minus 3x squared minus 2x plus 3. And then for our last example on this page, we have f of x divided by g of x. So it gives us 2x minus 3 over x squared minus 1. That x squared minus 1 does factor, so we're just going to factor it to be 2x minus 3 over x minus 1 times x plus 1. From here, you cannot simplify anything because there is nothing that is the same on both the top and the bottom of this fraction. So that is your answer for this one. So with the next part that we're going to look at, these can also be written in different ways. So like you'll see here, like we saw that the f of x plus g of x, we saw it in the form that it's underlined. It's the same exact thing as f plus g of x. So it just means to add the two. So you'll see these interchangeably. You'll either see it like what you see on the left or what you see on the right, but they mean the same exact thing. If we look at the next example, it tells us that f of x is 2x plus 1, g of x is x squared plus 2x minus 1. We're finding f plus g of x, and then we're going to evaluate the sum when x is equal to 2. So I don't know why I put f of 2, but it shouldn't be f of 2. So what I'm going to do is just get rid of this. And then we'll do it to where we're finding the sum of it. So if we find f plus g of x, we're going to take f of x, which we said is the 2x plus 1. And then we're going to add it with the g of x, which is x squared plus 2x minus 1. Get rid of your parentheses, combine like terms. So that's 2x plus 1 plus x squared plus 2x minus 1. Combine your like terms, put it in standard form. That x squared goes down first. 2x plus 2x is 4x. And then 1 minus 1 is just 0. So we do not need that plus 0 or that minus 0. We can just have it as the x squared plus 4x. So that is f plus g of x. This is the first part. It tells us to find f plus g of x, then evaluate the sum when x is equal to 2. So we're doing f plus g of 2. So we said that f of plus g of x is the x squared plus 4x. Now what we do is we plug in that 2 for x anywhere in that sum. So that's going to give us 2 squared plus 4 times 2. That 2 squared is 4. 4 times 2 is 8. 4 plus 8 gives us that f plus g of 2 is equal to 12. If we look at our next example, we're told that f of x is equal to 3x squared plus 2x minus 1, and g of x is equal to 3x minus 1. First one that we're finding is f of x plus g of x. So we are just going to take the sum of these two. So that's going to give us 3x squared plus 2x minus 1 plus 3x minus 1. So get rid of your parentheses, combine like terms. That's going to give us 3x squared. The 2x plus 3x is 5x. And then the negative 1 minus 1 is negative 2. So 3x squared plus 5x minus 2 is f of x plus g of x. For B, you have f minus g of x. So that's like f of x minus g of x. So we're just going to take the 3x squared plus 2x minus 1 minus the 3x minus 1. So distribute that negative into the second set of parentheses, then combine like terms. Write it in standard form. So that's 3x squared plus 2x minus 1 minus 3x plus 1. Your 3x squared drops down. The 2x minus 3x is negative x. Negative 1 plus 1 are opposites, so they cancel out. So it's just 3x squared minus x. If we look at our next example, we have f of x times g of x. So we're going to take f of x, which we said is the 3x squared plus 2x minus 1, and multiply it with the 3x minus 1. I don't like the way these are organized, so I'm just going to rewrite it to where that 3x minus 1 is in front. And then I'm just going to distribute the 3x in, then distribute the negative 1 in. So 3x times 3x squared is 9x cubed. 3x times 2x is 6x squared. 3x times negative 1 is negative 3x. The negative 1 times 3x squared is negative 3x squared. Negative 1 times 2x is negative 2x. And negative 1 times negative 1 is positive 1. From here, combine your like terms. Your 9x cubed drops down. You have 6x squared and negative 3x squared, which gives you a positive 3x squared. Then you have negative 3x and negative 2x, which is negative 5x. And then lastly, that positive 1. So your f of x times g of x is just 9x cubed plus 3x squared minus 5x plus 1. For example D, we have f divided by g of x. So this just means we're going to take f of x, put it over g of x, and then simplify if we can. So we said that f of x was the 3x squared plus 2x minus 1. G of x, we said, is 3x minus 1. From here, try to factor the top. You have an a that's something other than 1, so multiply 3 times negative 1. That gives you negative 3. The factors of negative 3 that add up to be positive 2 are 3 and negative 1. So that's going to give you 3x squared plus 3x minus x minus 1. If you factor this by grouping, factor out a 3x from the first, factor out a negative 1 from the second, that gives you 3x times x plus 1 minus 1 times x plus 1. So your two parentheses are the same. That's x plus 1 times 3x minus 1. So this just factors or simplifies to be 3x minus 1 times x plus 1 over 3x minus 1. On the top and the bottom, you have a 3x minus 1. So they cancel out with one another, and you're just left with x plus 1. So when you're working with these two functions and you're told to find the composition of them, you're going to see these, like the starts of them, a little bit differently than you have in the first part of this. So these ones are going to be something like f of g of x, which means normally you'd see a function rule as f of x. In this, you'll see it as f of g of x. So you're going to take whatever the expression is for g of x and plug it in for x in f of x. So that means that you're going to have, like for this example, f of x is equal to x squared, g of x is equal to x plus 1, bless you. You're going to find f of g of x. So you're going to find f of x plus 1. So wherever the x is in f of x, you're going to plug in the x plus 1 for, bless you. So in that case, it's just x plus 1 squared, which you can simplify by separating it to be x plus 1 times x plus 1 and FOIL out as x squared plus 2x plus 1. So if we look at some examples, you're going to see these two different ways. You're going to see them like we did in the one before, where it's f of g of x. So like the g of x is in for x in f of x. You're also going to see them with this little tiny circle in between the f of x, or sorry, the f and the g. That just means the same exact thing. So if we look at this example, we have f of x, that's the square root of x, g of x, that's x minus 1. We're finding f of g of x, f of g of 2, and f of g of 0. So for f of g of x, even though there's that little circle in between the f and the g here, it means the same thing as f of g of x. So take f of x, plug it in for x, take g of x, plug it in for x, and f of x. So that means we're just going to have the square root of x minus 1 for this one. For f of g of 2, we said that f of g of x is that square root of x minus 1. So that means you're going to plug the 2 in for that, and that's going to give you the square root of 2 minus 1, which is the square root of 1, which is just 1. For f of g of 0, again, we're going to use that f of g of x, and we're going to plug in 0 for that. So we're going to have the square root of 0 minus 1, which is the square root of negative 1, which is I. If we look at our next set of examples, we're using f of x is equal to 5x plus 7, g of x is equal to 3x squared plus 4x. We're finding the following. The first one we have is f of g of x. So we're going to take g of x, plug it in for f of x. So that's just f of 3x squared plus 4x. So that means we're going to have the 5x plus 7, and we're going to plug that entire expression, that 3x squared plus 4x, in for x. So that's going to give us 5 times 3x squared plus 4x plus 7. From here, we simplify. So 5 times 3x squared is 15x squared. 5 times 4x is 20x. And then we have that plus 7. You do not have any like terms, so you are done with this one. That is your answer. For example B, you have g of f of x. So you're taking f of x, plugging it in for x, and g of x. So that means that we're going to find g of 5x plus 7 in 3x squared plus 4x. So if we take this 5x plus 7, plug it in for x, anywhere we see the x, that means we're going to have 3 times 5x plus 7 squared plus 4 times 5x plus 7. So this is kind of similar to one of the questions that was on your last quiz. You have a binomial that's squared. You have to separate that and FOIL it out before you do anything with that. So separate that, FOIL it out from here. So you're going to have 3 times 5x plus 7 times 5x plus 7 plus 4 times 5x plus 7. From here, like I said, you're going to FOIL the 5x plus 7 out. Thank you. Good morning. So that's going to give you 3 times 25x squared plus 35x plus 35x plus 49 plus 4 times 5x plus 7. Inside that first set of parentheses, combine your like terms. So you're going to have 3 times 25x squared plus 70x plus 49 plus 4 times 5x plus 7. From here, distribute the 3 in, distribute the 4 in. So 3 times 25 is 75. You keep the x squared. 3 times 70 gives us 21 with your 0 left over, so that's 210. Then 3 times 49. The 3 times 9 is 27. The 3 times 4 is 12, plus 2 is 14. So that's a positive 147. You then have 4 times 5x, which is 20x, and 4 times 7, which is 28. From here, combine your like terms. That 75x squared drops down. You have 210x plus 20x, which is 230x. Then you have 147 plus 28. Your 7 and 8 give you 15. You carry the 1. 3 and 4 is 7 with your 1 in front. So that's 75x squared plus 230x plus 175. For example C, you have g of f of negative 3. We're going to work inside out with this. So we're going to first find the f of negative 3. If we find f of negative 3, we're just plugging in 3 in for f of x. Remember that f of x is the 5x plus 7. So we're going to take that negative 3, plug it in for x, and simplify. So it's 5 times negative 3 plus 7. The 5 times negative 3 is negative 15 plus 7 gives us negative 8. So f of negative 3 is equal to negative 8. Replace the f of negative 3 with the negative 8. You're then going to find g of negative 8. We said g of x is the 3x squared plus 4x. So anywhere we see that x, we're going to replace it with that negative 8. So that means that's going to give us 3 times negative 8 squared plus 4 times negative 8. The negative 8 squared is 64, so that's 3 times 64 plus 4 times negative 8. From here, multiply. 3 times 4 is 12, carry the 1. 3 times 6 is 18, plus 1 is 19, so it's 192. Then you have 4 times negative 8, which is negative 32. Subtract these two. 192 minus 32 is going to give us 160. So that 160 is g of f of negative 3. For example D, we have f of g of negative 1/3. So we're first going to find that g of negative 1/3 before we do anything else. So g of negative 1/3, we're going to plug that negative 1/3 in for g of x, which is 3x squared plus 4x. So this is going to replace both of these x's, this negative 1/3. So that's going to give us 3 times negative 1/3 squared plus 4 times negative 1/3. That negative 1/3 squared is 1/9, so that's 3 times 1/9 plus 4 times negative 1/3. The 3 times the 1/9, the 3 becomes 1, 9 becomes 3. That gives you 1/3 plus 4 times negative 1/3 is negative 4/3. You combine these, your bigger sign is on that 4/3, so you're going to keep, the bigger number is the 4/3, so keep the negative in front of it, subtract the numerators, negative 4 plus 1 is negative 3 over 3, so g of negative 1/3 is negative 1. Take that negative 1 now, plug it in for your g of negative 1/3, and find f of negative 1. To find f of negative 1, we're going to plug in negative 1 in for x and 5x plus 7. So that negative 1 goes in for x. We're going to have 5 times negative 1 plus 7. The 5 times negative 1 is negative 5. Plus 7 gives us 2. So f of g of negative 1/3 is equal to 2.